In Fulton County, Georgia, that is Atlanta, Georgia. In Fulton County, Georgia, the district attorney, Fani Willis, has convened a special grand jury to investigate actions of the former president to try to subvert the election in Georgia. Allegedly subvert the election in Georgia. Fani Willis is interviewing a number of public officials, including Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State, to whom Trump very infamously made a phone call where he spent an hour trying to get Raffensperger to find just over 11,000 votes. Now, you've heard from the January 6th commission about those 11,700 some odd votes Trump said were there, and all he needed to do was get Brad Raffensperger to get them. What you haven't heard is the part of the phone call where really what this is that Donald Trump believes that there were more than 100,000 improperly cast votes in Georgia, and all he needs are those 11,700 some odd votes. That's all he needs. And that is when you heard the January 6th commission play the audio of Trump saying, just give me 11,700 votes. They left out the context of he was wrong, but he truly believed. So he had no intent to commit a crime. He truly believed, based on what his lawyers were telling him, that there were over 100,000 fraudulently cast votes in Georgia. They had found them and they were documented. And he just telling Brad Raffensperger, I just need 11,700, the margin of victory, whatever it is. I just need that many. Just pick whichever ones you want to give me and give them to me because you got over 100,000 that were wrong. That takes away the intent to commit the crime. And that's been left out of the story. I don't think this is a crime in which the president should go to prison, let alone be indicted. I don't think there was a crime there if he really did believe, based on what evidence had been given to him by his team, that there were all these votes there. Whether the team was right or wrong, and I think the team was wrong, the president had no willful desire to throw out or steal an election. He thought the election had been stolen from him. So there's that intent component. But the Democratic, and it's relevant, Democratic district attorney in Fulton County has decided to make a national name for herself out of this and investigate. A special grand jury was convened, and a special grand jury cannot indict. A special grand jury can just decide if there is enough evidence for a regular grand jury to indict. It's being overseen by a well-respected judge in Fulton County. It has gotten decidedly more political, and you need to understand this because I find it discrediting of the entire affair. One of the people Fani Willis, the district attorney, wishes to interview is the governor of the state of Georgia, Brian Kemp. There is no doubt in anyone's mind that Brian Kemp did what he thought was his constitutional duty. In large part, people miss this. People who hate Kemp and think he should have stopped this miss the point that in Georgia's constitution, there is literally nothing the governor could have done. The Constitution of the state of Georgia prohibits a governor from doing anything in an election. That's the Secretary of State's role, a separate constitutional officer. Down in Florida, in New Jersey, and a few other places, the governor appoints the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of State serves at the pleasure of the governor, just like the U.S. Secretary of State serves at the pleasure of the president. They can be fired at will by the chief executive. Georgia has a separate constitutional office for Secretary of State. It's an elected position. The governor cannot fire, hire, or do anything with that office. And that office is what oversees elections. And under the Georgia Constitution, the governor is absolutely prohibited from doing anything, playing any role in an election. But Trump tried. So the district attorney, Fani Willis, wants to talk to Brian Kemp and get him before the grand jury to answer questions. And what they agreed to do to keep this out of politics, so it doesn't look political at all, They agreed to do a videotape statement. They agreed to do this videotape statement towards the end of July. And Kemp would answer questions and give his sworn video statement of what exactly it was that had happened, the conversations he had. Here is the statement or the article from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution dated June 23rd, 2022. Governor Brian Kemp will deliver testimony next month to Fulton County prosecutors investigating Donald Trump's efforts to overturn Georgia's 2020 election, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution has learned. But unlike the parade of witnesses who have appeared at the Fulton courthouse to answer questions in front of a special grand jury, the Republican will instead deliver a sworn recorded statement, according to a letter from the Fulton County District Attorney's office dated Wednesday. The letter to Kemp's attorney, Nathan Wade, a special prosecutor hired by Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis to help with the investigation, said the DA's office agreed to the terms in a spirit of cooperation with the governor and his schedule. The examination would take place July 25th. The 23-member special grand jury also subpoenaed a bevy of evidence from Kemp's office, which Wade said must be made available 72 hours before the testimony. Among the requested documents is anything that represents, explains, and provides context about the November 2020 election and the 60 days after, the certification of the presidential electors on January 6th, and the rally held at the Capitol. Now, that was scheduled to be at the end of July, the sworn testimony. In fact, the governor's office handed over all of the documents. According to the governor's office, there were boxes and boxes of documents, precisely 40 bankers' boxes worth of documents containing 137,000 pages of documents that were handed over in July. Well, guess what? The prosecutor, Fani Willis, decided to have a fundraiser for the Democrats' lieutenant gubernatorial nominee against Burt Jones, the Republican gubernatorial nominee. Burt Jones, she's investigating him because Burt Jones, the Republican lieutenant gubernatorial nominee in Georgia, was one of the supposed electors who was going to stand in for the GOP if Congress cast doubt on Georgia's electoral college vote. The Republicans would be ready to go and say, no, we're the real ones, count us instead. So she's investigating the lieutenant gubernatorial nominee in Georgia and decides to hold a fundraiser for the Democrat opponent. So the judge in the case says, hold up, you can't investigate this guy if you're holding a fundraiser for his opponent. And the DA had the audacity to say, well, it's different. It's different. No, it's not. It's political. You can't be investigating someone while you're fundraising for his opponent. And I can't believe they didn't realize this would be a problem. Kind of gives proper context to what happened next, does it not? The governor was going to give his sworn statement, videotaped, handed over all the documents, and the district attorney's office abruptly canceled what they wanted. They agreed and they wanted a videotaped sworn statement by the governor, and he was willing to give it to them. And instead, what did they do? Turns out the DA decided they were going to subpoena him instead and make a big deal out of it and haul him through like Rudy Giuliani, let all the cameras see him going in, all of that. It's an election season in Georgia. And who is he running against? Stacey Abrams. And guess who Fani Willis is supporting? You see where this goes? You see where this goes? She held a fundraiser for the lieutenant gubernatorial nominee for the Democrats. You know she's supporting Stacey Abrams, and she was willing to give him a videotape deposition, videotape statement, and now, basically going to perp walk the governor into the grand jury room with all the cameras, just like Rudy Giuliani, and turn it into an election spectacle. So the governor's office in Georgia has filed a massive motion, a 121-page motion in Fulton County Superior Court. The lawyer acknowledged that the sworn statement was canceled and accused the DA of gamesmanship with the grand jury process and deception as it served the governor with a subpoena. This is from the document. Unfortunately, what began as an investigation into election interference has itself devolved into its own mechanism of election interference. This is particularly egregious when directed towards the state's highest executive, who is not accused of any wrongdoing and is occupied with the business of governing. Now, here's the thing. The governor has sovereign immunity. He has executive privilege as well. His conversations with his staff about the election are privileged. It's one reason to do the sworn statement, so that he can bypass all of the things he's not allowed to talk about. It would seem to make sense that they would at least delay hearing from him until after the November election. But no, she essentially wants to drag him in, cameras rolling, seeing him coming into the place, as if he's done something wrong when he's the man who really Trump tried to beat. This can't wait, really? This can't wait until after the November election? Really? This can't wait until after the November election? Are you kidding me? The whole thing has been handled in such an amateurish way by the DA's office. It's a national story. See, and what the media nationally is leaving out, they're starting to cast aspersions on Brian Kemp. Can you believe this? So the national media is now casting aspersions on Georgia's governor, the man who defied Trump, the man who beat Trump. Trump found someone to run against him. The guy ran against Trump's handpicked candidate, David Perdue, overwhelmingly crushed him. And now the media's like, what is Kemp hiding about the stolen election? Why doesn't he want to go to get his subpoena and go before the grand jury? What's he hiding? Was he involved in the conspiracy? This is the idiocy and the brain damage of the National Press Corps on this story. And it's ridiculous that a prosecutor who is backing Kemp's opponent would cancel at the very last minute a video statement from him in favor of bringing him before the grand jury in the middle of an election campaign when she's backing his opponent. At least wait until after the election is over if you absolutely must get him there under subpoena. Wait for his testimony. But they don't want to do that either, which makes this whole thing now seem like what started off as an inquiry into what actually happened is now a way to try to score points for the Democrats and Stacey Abrams. It's ridiculous. And the national media is now covering this as if Kemp has something to hide. Really? The man who Donald Trump accused of stealing the election, who Donald Trump found someone to run against, who beat Donald Trump's candidate, who stood up for the Constitution and did the right thing and stood up for the integrity of the election? And now suddenly they're casting doubts on him, all to help Stacey Abrams, which is why probably the rest of this farce should be wound down now and people go about their lives and business.